All right, my friends, what do you say we kick this thing off? All right, everybody. Thank you
Right.
so much for joining us today. We really appreciate the questions and the thoughts that were submitted in that registration list, and we did our best to incorporate as many as we could in our list of questions that our team's going to cover today. So thank you so much for spending the next 45 minutes with us. The session will be recorded. We're happy to send out a copy upon completion. And we want to first start things off with a quick round of introductions. So Liz, if you wouldn't mind starting us off.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Liz Murray, and I'm the Director of Professional Services at JCA. I joined JCA in 2017, originally as a consultant. I've worked on a wide range of projects from needs assessments to system selections to implementations and whatever happens beyond. I started my nonprofit career in the arts and culture sector, most notably working at the Toronto Symphony. At JCA, we've helped many arts organizations select new systems over the years, and so I'm really excited to share our experiences and lessons learned today. And
Hello, everyone. My name is Anne Hargaden. I'm a principal consultant at JCA. I joined JCA in 2011, and prior to joining JCA, I had worked in the nonprofit sector for a decade. I work on many needs assessment and system selection projects with clients from across the nonprofit spectrum, whether that's museums, performing arts, higher ed, cause-related organizations, and I'm very pleased to be able to join you all today to participate in this webinar. Anna Marie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Marie Faulkner. I'm the Client Development Lead at JCA. I've been with the company for about 4 years, and prior to that, I have about 10 years of marketing and communications experience working in arts and culture nonprofits. And I will be moderating once we get into the question portion of today.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone here from JCA. My name is Mike Brown. I'm a solution engineer at Salesforce, and I specialize in our arts and culture subsector, which matches my experience coming into Salesforce. I was at the Exploratorium for 18 years in guest services and some development as well. And then I spent some time in our ecosystem at a ticketing partner. So I've been on both sides of the table and really excited to bring that experience with me here today to talk to us all about CRM system selection. Before we get into the fun stuff, let's just do a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about for the next 45 minutes. I'm going to spend maybe 5 minutes giving you all an overview of Salesforce for the arts, just in case there are some folks here who haven't yet heard about our work in the sector. And then Liz from JCA will give us a high-level overview of what JCA does and how they support the arts community. And then we'll jump into a fireside chat moderated by Anna Marie. And then if we have time at the end, we'll get into any questions that may be in the chat. So let's go ahead and jump in. To get our creative juices flowing, we would love to hear from you in the audience. When you're thinking about a CRM transformation, what's top of mind for you? Is it one of these 4 things? Is it something else? Are you looking to become more connected? Are you trying to bring your data together and create this comprehensive stakeholder view? Are you looking to maybe change your processes and decrease admin overhead through more automation or a fresh look at how you're doing things? Or are you trying to drive revenue and engagement through better personalization or connectedness? We'd love to hear from you. Any thoughts you have? All right, so we'll respond to those as they come in. So let's move on to Salesforce for the arts. And again, just a quick high-level overview of what we do in the sector. So as you know, Salesforce is a cloud-based CRM and platform. It all starts with trust, security, innovation, and the ability to scale. And on top of that, we have a metadata platform layer that allows our system to be very configurable with clicks and not code. Of course, pro code is also supported. We help drive collaboration through tools that run across our system, whether you're in sales, service, or marketing, mobile out of the box, automation to get you out of the admin overhead, and then AI to help you do things faster and uncover insights. But what I want you to remember about this is actually three things, is that Salesforce provides a nonprofit cloud that is built for the nonprofit industry with unified CRM, fundraising tools across major giving, mass market fundraising, and donor operations, as well as program management, insights, and marketing, all really out of the box. Then you couple that with our extensive partner community that has pre-built apps for ticketing and membership, online giving, volunteers, telephony, and so much more built on top of our open APIs. And then we've got this tremendous community of support for the arts community with both certified implementation partners, success plans that we offer, professional services, and then your peers in the industry who may have already gone through similar changes and processes that you can leverage to get off the ground faster. And what we see when we go into arts and culture engagements is that we often hear about silos across ticketing, membership and development, marketing, private event rentals, and then how does this data get into accounting? So what we want to do is we want to take those siloed systems and other systems that your organization might have and build kind of this stakeholder-centric approach to bring your data together and drive connected experiences, a unified view of your data, give you flexibility and adaptability to evolve as needs change. For example, like what happened in the pandemic, needing to really pivot quickly. And then use AI to drive predictions, workflows, and personalization at scale. And then once we are all done with that, if we do that right, this is kind of that North Star end state we want to achieve, is giving you the data around your stakeholders that helps you drive fundraising, engagement, service and support. You have all the information about what your stakeholders are purchasing across all touch points. And you build this rich profile so that you're always speaking to your stakeholders in the full context of what they do. Now I want to hand things over to Liz to tell us a bit about JCA before we get into our fireside chat.
Thank you. So for those of you who are new to JCA, we are a consulting firm that specializes in nonprofit technology and operations. We've been around for over 35 years, and simply put, we help our clients manage their data and learn how to use it. We do this by removing roadblocks that limit success to help our clients reach their goals and achieve their vision. We work with many museums, zoos, aquariums, and performing arts organizations to replace their legacy systems. We work together to assess their needs, build a shared vision, and select and implement a new system like a CRM. We are system agnostic. Our consultants know the nonprofit marketplace, and we have a lot of friends like Mike, but we don't promote a preferred product or platform. We want what's best for you. And finally, we take a tailored approach to our projects. We really focus on what you need and what will work for your organization. And so that's JCA. If you want to learn more, please check out our website, or feel free to reach out to Anne or me directly. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Anna Marie to kick off our Q&A.
Thank you, Liz. So now we're going to get to the heart of the conversation. We'll be answering several common questions that we often receive around system selection in the process, including some that you all submitted. And if there's time at the end, we're going to be answering some questions from today's audience. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the Q&A. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first question. Implementing a new CRM feels like such a huge undertaking. What is an easy way to get started?
I'll help answer that one. I agree. A new system is a very big undertaking. And as the song says, let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. So we would recommend starting by defining what it is you need in a new CRM. What is the specific functionality that you require? If you're going to purchase anything, you need to know what it is you're looking for. So maybe you're preparing for a capital campaign and you need a system with strong major giving tools, and you'll need it to be flexible in how it manages pledges. Do you need membership functionality? What kinds of events do you need to manage in your CRM? Do you host galas and other fundraising events that have tickets? Or maybe you have a lot of stewardship events that are complimentary where you need to track RSVPs from the invitees. If you're in the performing arts or a museum, do you need your CRM to integrate with your ticketing system? Be sure to consider what it is you need today and what you will need in the future. You'll be using the CRM for years to come. So think about your plans for growth, especially new programs that you're planning to develop and what they might need in a new system. To help define your needs, make sure you include a cross-section of all the users who use your CRM system. Getting those other perspectives will help make sure that you capture all the requirements. And it's fine to include some wish list items. You know, if you're looking for a system that's going to last for the next 5 years, it's okay to think big and, you know, ask for those things that might seem far off and unattainable. You just might be able to achieve them. Just be careful not to let the wishes overshadow the functionality that you know that you have to have. Liz, did I miss anything?
Well, I think like in terms of I guess an easy way to get started, I guess I would suggest is creating a template for each of your teams to add requirements and just start there. Like just start by jotting down your basic requirements, or if you don't have the bandwidth for that, or you need help, or you don't feel like you have what you need in-house, you can also consider hiring someone to help you with that requirements aspect of it all, because that's really going to help be the foundation of everything that's yet to come in this journey, is really having a strong foundation of what you need and have that list written down so that you can then make those choices about prioritization and also in terms of like scanning the marketplace and really figuring out like what your options are, and then to help you thought, because there's so many things that are interconnected when you go on this journey, like getting the budget in place, getting the timing in place, and like putting it all in the bigger landscape of all the other great things you're trying to do as an organization. So I'd say that would be like one of the starting points. The other thing I'd say that is pretty easy is you can talk to your peers. So really, I would recommend just chatting with people you know about who've gone through, maybe they've gone through the process recently. They likely will have similar requirements for you and experience in this area that you can use to inform your project. Sounds like you agree, Mike.
Totally agree. No, that's exactly right. I concur.
All right, let's move
All
on.
right.
We got this one solved.
So we'll move on to our next question. What if several functional areas have systems that need updating? How do you accommodate the different needs?
I think that like the first thing is I would make sure that you're thinking about your needs within the context of your greater data ecosystem. So it's like you're all like, you each are on your own teams and you each have maybe a functional need that you need support with in terms of your like system replacement, but they're all interconnected within how your data needs to move across the system, and like how people are going to like your processes. They're not like just, a lot of them have dependencies across your different teams. So I think that it's not really like a matter of who goes first, so to speak. It's more so like planning it all out in terms of like this greater ecosystem and what you need to do to improve it. I would recommend starting with like if, for example, you're looking at a ticketing and a CRM for the context of this example, I would get your requirements first for both of those things up front versus like treating them as two separate projects. That will help you create some efficiencies in the process, and then also have just like that knowledge as you go through the system selection process of knowing what your full big picture requirements are. It will also allow you to be able to consider unified solutions as well as part of your selection process. Because if you don't do that part, then you won't have the full list of requirements as you go down that path. I would also just think about like what else is going on for each team in terms of like timing, and like what, like maybe one team might have the bandwidth during this time of the year versus another team when you're doing your project planning, to make sure that you actually have the internal resources, because it is going to take a lot of work from your internal teams in terms of implementing the system. So I think just being really honest about and like real with yourselves about what it's going to take and what else you have on your plate at the same time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think this is where organizations really need to separate the urgent from the important. I can't tell you how many times I've seen an RFP doc that has 90% of things as must-haves and top priority. And I totally get it, right? Like we have many things that are priority items, but it's hard to prioritize everything at the same time. So really making a strategic decision on what are those must-haves and what are those nice-to-haves and what has to go first and what can happen in a second phase or a later phase, to your point, Liz. And then, of course, you're going to want to find the right platform that can grow with your organization. So depending on where you choose or where you select that first priority item to be, you'll find the system that really does well with that. And then you want to make sure it also has the other things that you're going to need, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, and so on and so forth.
And I
And
guess
you
the
have
last thing
anything
is
to add?
making sure I was just going to add your vendor contracts. That would be also a factor. Like if one of them runs out, like at the end of this year versus another one, you have a couple of years, that changes the amount of runway you have to make the
Right.
replacement or to figure out how that all works in terms of managing your budgets and timelines.
Thank you, Liz and Mike. All right, should we go to question 3?
Sure.
Okay. In terms of requirements, what are some of the more recent priorities you've been hearing from arts and culture clients?
I'll jump in on this one since I do a lot of the needs assessment and system selection projects that we have. I think the most common items that we've been hearing recently are that organizations are really looking for browser-based or web-based systems. They're looking for systems that are cloud hosted or vendor hosted. A lot of organizations are looking to lose that overhead and they don't want to maintain servers themselves if they don't have to. They'd really prefer to offload that responsibility onto the vendors. Remote access and mobile friendly is very high on everyone's list these days, especially since the pandemic and the growth of remote work. Everybody wants to be able to access their system on their mobile device. So that's definitely a high priority. Systems that are open to integration is another high priority that people have, whether there are existing integrations with a system that they're looking at, or if it just has robust APIs that would enable them to create integrations of their own. Many people are looking for that because they want to be able to integrate their data from their separate systems to be able to get that full view of their constituent activity with the organization. Mike, what about you? What are you seeing in your work with the nonprofit community?
Yeah, I would agree with everything you just said. Absolutely all of that. And I'd add one thing, which is kind of declarative configuration. So the ability for lack of a better term, business users, right? So out of IT, you're giving them the tools and being empowered to make updates to workflows or page layouts or forms in their own departments without potentially having to go and ask IT for that support. Same thing would go with report building, because we are seeing some orgs move into more of a kind of a decentralized governance process for some of these applications that are more user friendly. And one thing I'd love to get your opinion on this, Anne, is I'm not hearing a lot about AI just yet. And it's surprising me because AI is everywhere. I don't know about everyone here, but I've used ChatGPT several times. And Salesforce is weaving it into a lot of the things that we're doing across our platform. And it truly does have the opportunity to transform the way we work, right? Thinking about drafting emails for us that we can, maybe change a little bit before we send, or if it looks good, just send that off. Or summarizing records, verbally asking, hey, can you summarize this person's record before I walk into an important meeting with a donor, right? So there's so many use cases for this. Maybe it's data. What do you think, Ian? Why aren't we hearing a lot about this? Do you have any idea?
It's a really good question. I think data might be part of the issue. If you have an older system, or if you aren't particularly confident in this quality of your data, I could see that some people might think it was a little risky to use AI to, say, automate donor communications or to try to compile a donor profile if you weren't secure in the data that was behind it. I could see that. I think maybe another element of that is that if you're an organization that's struggling with current systems, the staff may just be trying to get the basics done. And that may take up their whole day. And so AI may seem like a far off dream. It may not be that far off, but it might feel that way in the day to day.
That's a fair point. And I think, folks should really start thinking about that in the new systems that they are looking to adopt, is how that's going to be instrumental for them in the future. A couple years down the road, I think we're all going to be using it. Maybe even whether we know it or not, so it's going to be baked into these systems, and getting ready for that's going to be important.
Thank you. All right, move on to our next question. So what are your thoughts on an all-in-one versus a best-of-breed approach for CRMs?
I think for this one, it's like the classic response of, oh, it depends, which I'm sure everyone always, it's a running joke about consultants that's always the answer. But in this case, I would say it really does depend. Some of the things that, like at a very high level, that I would consider when making this decision would be, obviously, first, your requirements. Like, can this all-in-one system actually meet your requirements? And like, if it can't, or if it can only slightly meet them, like what would those trade-offs be, and what would it look like, to really consider what it would be like, instead of getting potentially caught up and being like, oh, life would be so easy if we just have one system that does it all, to really like be realistic about, like, does it do it all, and discerning about it all, because maybe it does, depending on your requirements, or maybe there are nuances within your requirements that on the surface it might seem like, this is great, this can do everything for me, that it might not actually do that. And then you might get farther down the road in terms of like selecting and implementing, and then it'll be harder for you to, like, you don't want to change your mind at that point, because you've already invested so much on it. I would also think about like your IT team, and like what that looks like how big is the team, what skills do they have, what's their bandwidth overall in supporting you, because they're going to need to learn to support every application that you add to your data ecosystem. So that's a factor that you'll want to consider in terms of the long-term vision. I would think about the budget, obviously, and consider how much money you have to spend in terms of implementation, but also in terms of your annual fees. And then most importantly, if you're thinking about like a best in breed, I would make sure that you have a really strong plan for integrations, because you don't want to, like, you could implement the best systems in the world, but if they're not integrated, you're going to have a lot of problems. And it might be more expensive than you anticipated. So you need to budget upfront for those integrations as part of this process.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on the integrations side. And if I had my druthers, I would reframe the wording of that best of breed and just call it integrated best of breed, because really that's the point, right? Is to select a suite of solutions that can coexist seamlessly on a platform, so that your organization can bring its data together, but you still have the ability for your departments to maintain the power of choice to select systems that really work well for them. So there's fewer compromises made there, so that everyone has really good tools to complete their job efficiently. And you might guess, right, why I might say that. I'm definitely answering here from the Salesforce point of view, and we are a best of breed platform. But I do believe it is the best path forward. And here's why. I've been in this industry for 27 years, and I vividly recall the failed promises of integrated systems back in the 90s, the 2000s, and even in the early 2010s, where we all thought integrations were going to be straightforward. And, a lot of times it didn't meet our expectations, and we were left doing manual data movement, and we had silos, and it was tough to have a full picture of what your constituents were doing. But things are different now. For the last decade, maybe even 15 years, we've seen an explosion of middleware tools in the market. Think about Zapier, Boomi, Jitterbit, MuleSoft, of course, to exchange data between these systems in a very admin-friendly way. There's, of course, pre-built integrations between amazing ticketing systems and CRM platforms like Salesforce. And speaking of Salesforce, we have thousands of native apps in our marketplace on App Exchange to satisfy evolving needs. And most of those apps are literally downloadable into your instance. You're thinking about going on your iPhone, right, and downloading a new app, right? It's very much like that. And then you select some configurations and you're off and running. And of course, there are some more involved integrations as well. But most of them are very straightforward. And just, maybe a little hyperbole here, but let's consider the relationship between general admission and development. Would you rather have both teams in the same system, but the trade-off is that guest services needs to click a few more buttons to sell a ticket, and your development team maybe has fewer options for engagement tools, or let guest services choose the best ticketing system for them, so lines move fast, the online sales process is frictionless, but then this data is entered into your CRM automatically so that development can see when donors are visiting, be flagged when they arrive, and allow them to choose the best engagement tool. I'd choose option B there all day. And my advice really is to seek out a platform with a robust ecosystem of partners, integration solutions, and also a peer user community so that you can mitigate risk, control your costs, and accelerate your mission achievement.
So Mike said a lot of wonderful things about best of breed. And it's not that I disagree with him. He makes some really great points, but I do want to say a few words about the all-in-one systems that can also have their advantages. They can be a lot easier to maintain because it is in fact one system as opposed to multiple systems where you have to maintain each system and the integrations in between them. Sometimes those integrations work really smoothly. Sometimes they're a little bit rocky. And if you're feeding it all into one database, then you're feeding it all into one database. If you have a small IT team, that puts a burden on them with a best of breed situation, as opposed to if, again, it's one system, it's less of a burden on your IT staff. It usually makes it a little bit easier to get that complete view of patron activity because, again, it's coming out of one database. And if you're a small organization with relatively straightforward processes, that single system may work well for you. All systems are going to have their limitations. One function may be stronger than another in every single system, whether it's focused on ticketing or focused on CRM or if it's an all-in-one that has both. But really the fundamental thing, the most important thing is to evaluate the systems that you're looking at against your organization's functional requirements. Can it do what you need it to do? It may not do what your neighbor needs it to do, but it might work fine for you. So it's really important to understand what it is you need and whether or not the systems can do what it is that you are looking for. So you'll just have to do that testing and research, that due diligence to understand what fits best for your organization, so you can make a well-informed decision.
I absolutely agree. So it would definitely make sense for organizations not to automatically disqualify one or the other, but to make sure they evaluate all of their options when they're looking at new systems.
Yeah, and make sure that you have all the right voices in the room, because you could evaluate it, but if you don't actually have the right project team internally, like of a cross-functional team that represents all the different groups, then you're going to be missing information and it won't be an informed decision. And then also in terms of change management, when you get to the final decision, that people know that they were there and they were part of this decision-making process. If they're not there, then it's easy to be like, oh, you chose this system for me, I don't want to use it, or like for you to have more resistance around the implementation and adoption part of the project.
Great discussion, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to question 5. So what does a typical CRM system evaluation look like, and how long does it take? What are the steps?
Well, we've talked a lot about one of the early steps, which is to define what your requirements are. What is it you need? What is it you're looking for? Another early step is to define your goals. What is it that you are trying to achieve with this new system? How will you know if you've succeeded? So make sure you know what your destination is, what the target is, what your goal is early on in the process as you get started. As we've said, define those requirements, prioritize them, and research the vendors to see who might fit. Go online. There are a lot of resources out there to look and understand what different systems offer. So you can have a peek at those things to sort of create your short list of vendors that you want to consider. Then you should develop a request for proposal or a request for information and send it to those vendors that you're interested in. The vendors need to understand what it is that you're looking for. And that's what that request for proposal can tell them. So it's essentially you asking them, say, hey, these are all the things I'm looking for. Can you do it? And then the vendors can prepare a proposal or response to you to say, yes, we can do 95% of these things, or we can only do 75% of these things. And they can detail all of that. I'm sure Mike can talk about that from the vendor's perspective in a second. Once you get those proposals back from the vendors, analyze them, see what they say. And then you can invite the vendors to demonstrate their product to you. We strongly recommend using scripted demonstrations where you give the vendors a series of scenarios, say, hey, I want to see how your system does X, Y, and Z, so that you can compare the vendors in an apples to apples way. You do have to give the vendors time to prepare if you want to do scripted demos like that. So it lengthens your process a little bit, but we think you get better information to inform your decision in that way. And then, score them, do your due diligence, talk to your peers, ask for references, and work your way down to a decision. As for how long it takes, classic consultant response, it depends. We would usually estimate 3 to 6 months. It depends on how many systems you're looking at, the size of your organization, how many people are involved in this process, the number of vendors that respond to the RFP, and how big a hurry you are in. If you've got a contract with a vendor that's expiring and you don't want to renew it, you and your organization may be highly motivated to make a decision more quickly. So there are a lot of factors that play into the time. Mike, what about from the vendor's perspective on selecting?
Well, first, I would say I really appreciate that you said giving vendors the right amount of time to prepare for demos, because that is super helpful. And we do love the opportunity to potentially reorder those demo steps so that everyone's system can be demonstrated in the flow of work that makes the most sense. Because as you know, systems vary, and sometimes one system might do things one system might do them in a different order. But everything you said sounds great, and I'd say just to add a couple of things. If you haven't gone through an RFP or an evaluation in a while, don't be afraid to reach out and ask an expert for help. The team at JCA does incredible work, and they are well suited to assist. And I would also say, when you do think about the vendors you want to involve, don't be afraid to reach out to them early. I would say that all vendors have your best interests in mind. None of us want to oversell anyone and overpromise and then underdeliver, because that makes for unhappy customers and doesn't serve either of us well. So we do have your best interests at heart and want to hear from you and want to figure out how to provide you with the tools to make you successful. And then during these RFP processes, it's ideal, if at all possible, for vendors to have direct interactions with your organization. If we're going through kind of an intermediary, or if you're having one point of contact for the RFP process, it's sometimes difficult for vendors to truly get the full context, because we all have questions like, what's a day in the life look like? Tell me what you do. And we only can really have that natural dialogue directly with the stakeholders. Yeah, I'd say that.
Great. I
Thank
think
you.
those are all great points.
Yeah, I'm going to keep us moving just because we've got about a little less than 10 minutes left. So our next question is, how long does it take to implement a new CRM? And what about the cost?
I think I'll go first on this one. I'd say, and to to repeat what Liz has already said, it depends. We say that a lot too here, and Anna said it. We said a lot here at Salesforce. So really, like, what's the scope of the project? Does the team have bandwidth to devote to an accelerated timeline if they really want to move quickly? Is there a data migration involved? And what's the status of that data, right? You have 30 years of data that's never been deduped or cleaned, things like that might slow us down a little bit. And if there are multiple systems at play here, let's say you're doing CRM and ticketing or CRM and marketing, or maybe all three, that could add some time if you can't do all those things in parallel. And then, of course, who goes first? But in terms of how long it takes, I've seen controlled scope. Let's say, let's just stand up the CRM for this one area, right? Take just a few months, but I've also seen it take quite a bit longer. What do you think, Liz?
If I had to not say it depends and just give an answer into this question, I would say 6 to 18 months is what I would feel comfortable with in terms of how long it takes. Because part of it is really like being realistic about what you can chew off internally. What is your, this takes a lot of work to do, to implement a new system, and especially if, since you're looking to achieve change and to see improvements and to automate and to do all these wonderful things, they take time and effort from people. So, and you still have your day-to-day jobs that you need to be supporting throughout this implementation process. So factoring that part in is really important when you're trying to determine how long it's going to take, and then also how much it's going to cost, because you might end up backfilling for some of your positions or hiring consultants or whatever you need to make your project work. And then I will echo what Mike's saying about your data. So it's not just about, it's about your data hygiene and how good your data is today, but also where it is. So if you are bringing data in from multiple sources, then that's going to increase the complexity of your migration. And then if you're adding transformation where you're cleaning it up and making it a bit more complete or improving the quality of it all, then that's also going to mean that you have to make all those decisions, and then you have to actually test it. And it often takes an iterative approach in that case for your data parts of it all. And then again, what else are you planning to do as part of the project and what's rolled in it? Are there integrations that you need? Essentially, then in the reverse, you could think, what's going to break when we turn off our system? So something that people sometimes forget are your reports. They're not, you can't just move your reports. It's a new data model. So you're going to have to do something to address that, so that it increases the scope of it all. So really just thinking big picture about everything and doing all the planning around what you need to include within this project to be successful. And anything to add on to that?
I just want to add on to the cost considerations. You mentioned briefly consulting support or staffing backfill. Some other things to consider are the licensing that you'll need to pay for this new system, the hosting of this new system, the implementation fees. Those are one-time fees, whereas the licensing and hosting are annual, or they're going to continue. Are you going to have to pay to develop integrations? What's the length of the contract for this new system that you're considering? And what are the annual increases in that? Vendors often have a 3 to 5% annual increase. Remember that you're going to have to continue to pay for your current system while you're using it, as well as starting to pay those fees for your implementation of the new system. Most vendors are willing to negotiate. So remember to ask. They want your business, so don't be shy to negotiate on price. So I think those are the cost considerations I wanted to toss in.
All right, I'm going to jump us ahead just to our final question here in our last couple minutes. We've talked a lot, had some great conversation, but what advice do you have to someone who's just starting out this process?
I'll start off with my advice would be invest in project management, and I make sure if you haven't gotten that message from all my answers over the last 45 minutes, is that it takes a lot of planning to select and implement a new system. There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of moving parts. There's different vendors. It's worth the investment to get a project manager, whether it's internal or if you need to hire externally to run the show, and to make sure that someone is controlling your project and has the bandwidth to monitor it and make sure that it gets to the finish line, and that you're like communicating with people and all those good things along the way. I could say more, but we only have 2 minutes.
I would advise keeping change management in mind throughout the process. Start at the top, but it flows all the way through the organization. Make sure you get that buy-in from leadership so that you know that they're going to support this project. It's a huge change for the organization. You're going to need that leadership support. But make sure that you involve staff throughout the organization who are going to be affected by the change as well. You're going to want to find people in different departments or different areas who will be your champions, who can encourage their peers to be excited about this change, and keep up the momentum, because if it's a long project, you're going to need to be able to keep morale up throughout. And don't try and do it all by yourself. It's a big organizational change, so involve the whole organization. Mike?
Yeah, I'd say everything that you both said, 100%. And I would add that changing CRM systems is an opportunity to kind of use it as a big reset button, where you have the opportunity to rethink your processes, how you're approaching your work. Don't just do a lift and shift and do everything as you were doing it in your new system. Maybe some things, yes, but it is really a good chance to look internally and find more efficiencies in how you're doing your work. Rethink the solutions that you're using alongside your CRM. Maybe there's things you might want to change there in the light of the new opportunities that your CRM will bring you. Also use it as a chance to come together and reframe and recommit to your strategic goals, and keep those in mind as you're looking at these new systems. Build that governance committee. Change management, as you said, Anne, super important. And the end result really should be improved collaboration, giving the ability to drive those data-driven decisions and be more efficient and have happy staff, right? People want to like what they do at work and the systems they work in. So keep that in mind too. Have fun. So with that, I think we're almost at time. Thank you all so very much. First, thank you to our partners at JCA, Liz, Anne, and Anna Marie. Thank you so much for joining me today in this webinar. I really enjoyed our conversation. I think there's probably a couple of questions that we didn't get to. Maybe we could do this again sometime soon, or follow up on email.
We can we'll follow up with folks individually if you did ask a question in the Q&A and we didn't get to it. So stay tuned.
Perfect. And then here's our contact information. If y'all want to take a screenshot, or we'll definitely be happy to send out the recording once we have that from Zoom. But please feel free to reach out at any time with questions, thoughts. If you want to bounce an idea off us, we are happy to have a conversation. So with that, thank you all so much again. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. And we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.